You don't need to spend money on 6 screens. You don't need to buy software. Everything that I used to get myself from my starting account value of $3,000 to my 6-figure account was completely free, with the exception of my...
Wow, this number really blows my mind. Over 75% of you who watch the show regularly are not subscribed. If you enjoy the show and want to support us, the easiest and also free way is just to hit that subscribe button. This will help us find new and better guests, and I promise you to continue to work at making this show better and bringing you more value. Welcome back to Be The Trader, everyone. Today is going to be a great day because I have my friend Ben here, who recently crossed $1 million in trading profits, trading the gap and crap strategy. And I wanted to bring him on to share his unique story. Well, Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Alex. It's great to meet you.
Absolutely. And by the way, I gotta give you a handshake, man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. I did just recently cross $1 million, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the future.
Absolutely, I would too. And you know what? I'm curious though, you know, you're here now, but what got you here? Like, what was the beginning?
Yeah.
Can you take us back on what even got you interested in trading?
Yeah, definitely. So I was at a point in my life where I was trying to figure out, you know, what I wanted to do long-term for the future. And I was looking into retirement. At the time, I didn't have any retirement accounts or anything like that. I've always been self-employed. So I always knew that I wasn't going to have an employer that was going to put money into my 401k or something like that. And I started to look in, you know, also to kind of like what would be the best tax advantage kind of things to do. And I realized that if I was going to have money for retirement, I was going to have to put money into a 401k. Well, then I figured out, okay, well, 401k is just a shell. So what do I need to invest in inside of the 401k? And I realized that it's stocks, generally the stock market, something like the SPY, VOO, something like that, you know, some kind of index fund. And I realized that if you put money into the SPY, if you put money into the market, you can generally expect to make about 8 to 10% a year over all the years on average, right? And I was like, okay, that's great, but making 10% a year isn't going to get me to, you know, any sort of significant amount of money anytime fast. So I started to realize, like, okay, well, I need to look into something else.
How old are you at this moment?
Gosh, I was 24, 25 maybe, something like that.
Okay. This was what year you would say?
This was 2020.
2020, okay.
Right. And so that actually brings a good point. So in 2020, kind of after everything crashed, this was around like May 2020 that I was looking into things. I realized that we were kind of at an all-time low. And I didn't know anything about the stock market at the time, but if you look at the chart, it was very obvious. Like things had fallen, and through March and April, it was just kind of red candles, you know, red daily candles throughout the entire thing. And around May 2020, I was like, okay, I think maybe not knowing anything, we've reached a bottom. And kind of the sentiment at the time for even people who didn't know anything about the stock market was if you buy something, it'll go up, the market's got to recover, and then eventually like you can kind of make profit doing that. And I did exactly that. I bought like Ford, you know, some other companies that were kind of depressed at the time that I thought would come back up, and effectively I bought and held them for a few months, and around October I think is when I closed all of those positions and realized profit. And that was kind of the first time where I was like, okay, like you can make money in the stock market. And I also realized at the time that I did make more than 10% on all of those trades. So I was like, okay, there are ways to make more than what the market makes on, you know, all the years on average, right? And so I realized that if I wanted to find something consistent, I would need to be able to repeat this and not just kind of buy something, wait a few months, and then realize kind of my 10% profit, right? So I realized I needed to get a little bit more into day trading and less into investing. And I've got a friend, his name is Zach, and we were kind of looking at all the stuff, you know, all this stuff all at the same time. It's in the same time frame, like in May, we bought stuff, we held it, it went up, and then we sort of sold around the same time too. And that was around the end of 2020 when we closed those positions and started to try and find something that wasn't investing that we could do to capitalize on the market. And eventually we tinkered around with some things. We tried trading crypto, we tried scalping, we tried, you know, all sorts of various different things. And we had watched a lot of content similar to yours. I actually think your video, one of your videos was the first video that we watched. And we started watching like all the free content we could find. And we learned very quickly that we didn't want to pay market tuition. So we figured if we kind of strategize and we paper trade, or if we collect data, or kind of test some things, that eventually we could find a profitable strategy.
We cover a lot of information on trading here on Be the Trader, but none is more important than the broker you choose to execute your trades. There are many reasons I use Cobra Trading every day, including multiple order routes where I can get fast execution, great availability on locates for hard to borrow stocks, and fantastic customer service. But don't just take my word for it. Both Benzinga and Forbes Advisor have awarded Cobra for best in class for short selling and day trading. Isn't it time you choose a great broker that you'll enjoy working with? Sign up now by using the link below, and Cobra will give you 100 days of free commission, 3 months of free software, and 33% off commission for life. I know you'll be as happy as I am when you trade with Cobra. Now let's get back to the show. Hold on, how'd y'all come up with that idea of like, why don't we take this approach?
It really was that we wanted to find some way to make, at least 1% a day. Because if you can make 1% a day over the 250 trading days, that's 250%. That's a significant amount. And if you can grow even a $1,000 account 250%, that's $2,500 that you have at the end of the year, right? And so we did kind of mess around with some things. We were looking at scalping. We were kind of watching some YouTubers like trade, and they were trying to scalp to the long side. And obviously, if you don't have a big account, if you don't have a lot of money, your thought is, okay, well, I'm not going to try and trade the big caps, because if I have $1,000 and the stock is $200, that's 5 shares. The stock has to move a whole lot for me to actually get any profit. And big caps aren't moving, 5, 10, 20% in a day. If they are, it's, kind of crazy, it's erratic, and it's not really predictable. And so instead of trying to scalp to the long side, we realized if we kind of look at what the stocks were doing that we were trying to scalp to the long side, they would start the day high, say $1, $1.20, and they would end the day low at like 80 cents, 75 cents. And so I started to really collect data. I'm very data driven. I wanted to find a strategy that was going to work without me having to pick the right direction, pick like the right time, pick, too many variables. I wanted there to be as few variables as possible, right? And so I realized over time that these stocks that we were trying to scalp to the long side, we could take longer swing style trades to the short side. And effectively, I collected data for about 2 months on this strategy. And I realized that there was actually a strategy here that I could capitalize on. So after 2 months of that, I started trading cash. I never really found a whole lot of value in trading paper, because you don't really get the emotional side of things. You're not sure if slippage is going to affect you. You don't know what the fees are going to do, especially with short trading. There's all sorts of fees. You really can't go to a free broker and locate shares and then kind of short there. You really had to find like a specific broker that could offer you the locates. And it's also about speed of execution too, Like I don't trade a fast time frame necessarily, but I also need to be able to get those shares immediately, right?
Which, to add to what you were saying, for those who are not aware, when it comes to locating, shorting, selling high, then buying to cover to make your profit, not all brokers have borrows, right? You have to pay to get those. And so that's what he means when it comes to finding locates, just FYI. And you also mentioned 2 months of data. Did you mean for 2 months you tracked multiple things of data, or do you mean for just those 2 months you had that data for those 2 months?
So for those 2 months, I was tracking that strategy. I was tracking, small, micro, like penny stocks basically, and it was the short strategy, and it was just that. I wasn't looking at long strategies. I wasn't looking at big caps. I wasn't looking at...
Was it like years back you were tracking, or was it just that 2 months of time?
No, because I had only had a year of even knowing what the stock market was. Before 2020, I knew what stocks were. Like I knew that Google and Walmart had stocks, but I didn't really get what all of that was. And so before 2020, I didn't know any of that. And this was like April, May, June of 2021 that I was really starting to collect all of this data, right? And so I realized basically the end of June, early July, that's when I realized that this could be a profitable strategy, and I started to capitalize on it with real cash. And I did start at a free broker, and I was able to short, but I very quickly found that a lot of the trades that would have worked out for me on paper didn't end up working out for me because I either couldn't get into the position, or they didn't have locates, or I missed the trade or something like that, right?
Right, which is irritating because, especially when you find a winning strategy, and then you're supposed to take them all.
Yes,
And
definitely.
if you can only take a handful because you're handicapped, you
Yeah.
can't really execute on a winning strategy.
Definitely. And that was another thing that I really realized too is I wanted to take 2 or 3 trades a day, but when you're restricted at the very beginning by the PDT restriction, you can only take 3 trades over a 5-day period. So like one of the struggles I had to suffer through in the very beginning was the PDT rule. I wanted to take 2 or 3 trades a day, but if I take a loss, there goes one of my day trades, and now I have to wait 5 days to get that day trade back, right?
Yes, what did you do?
Yeah, so I tried a couple of different things. I tried having multiple brokers. That didn't really work. I tried, not stopping out when the strategy said that I should, and that obviously didn't work.
Because you're like, I'd rather take it's like, I'm hoping I don't have to waste a day trade.
Definitely, yeah. I tried, splitting my positions into halves. So maybe if I take a loss, it's only on a half, but it maybe if something gives me confirmation, I can take the second half and ride that to the downside, basically. But eventually, I had to get past PDT. And so that was really my goal in the beginning, was to get past PDT so that I can actually trade what the data suggests and not trade based on what I'm restricted to.
So pattern day trader rule.
Yeah.
Which for those who don't know, if you have under $25,000,
Yep.
you can't execute more than 3 trades in a rolling 5-day period.
Exactly.
If you do, you're tagged or flagged
Yeah.
as a PDT trader.
Right.
Which means they block you from trading in the future. Usually they give
Definitely.
you one forgiveness, but that's irritating. So how did you overcome that? Because I know you said my first goal was to make over 25K, so you can get over that. Did you just have to struggle through those times of just playing the ones you could get borrows on and were able to do, or did you come up with something other way?
Yeah, definitely. One of the initial things that I did is instead of taking 3 or 4 trades in a day, I just took 2 trades, and that really helped me too, because then I'm not focusing on everything that shows up on my scanner. I'm just focusing on these 2, and once I have these 2, if they work, great, and if they don't work, then they don't work. And I did that for a while, and that really helped me. And then, if I would stop out on a day trade, maybe I would only take 1 trade because I wanted to make sure that I was kind of conserving those day trades. And I just kind of continued doing that for a while until I was able to gain traction.
So you managed through the restrictions that you were in. You basically just kept pushing through and just kept trading with the smaller account under the restrictions and under the restrictions of not being able to borrow everything.
Yes. But to be honest, I also found an offshore broker where I was able to get past the PDT restriction. And fortunately, I only had to be there for a little bit of time.
Yep.
But that also helped me kind of break past the PDT restriction. But I realized as soon as I got to that offshore broker and I got past PDT and I was able to trade the data exactly as I needed to, the strategy worked out awesome. And so fortunately, I was only at the offshore broker for a few months, not even a year, literally 3 or 4 months. And I was able to grow my account above that 25K limit, and I was able to move my capital back to an onshore broker.
Yep.
And from there, it's just kind of been not smooth sailing, not sky high, but it's a lot easier for me to capitalize on my strategy when I don't have that PDT restriction.
Okay. And so you get your money and you move it to a U.S. broker, for lack of a better term for me, and then it seems like now the chains are off and you just start growing. Is that what starts happening?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't just a straight line up to the right, obviously, in terms of my account value and everything. But it did make things a lot easier. As I mentioned before, I'm a very data-driven trader. And those 2 months or 3 months that I put in collecting data before I traded cash, I was able to really find and refine a strategy. I set and established a set of rules. Many of those rules I still use today that I haven't changed over the course of the last 3 years. And I'm very systematized. So I have a set stop and I have a set take profit. And if the stop hits, I'm out. And if the take profit hits, I'm out. I don't move my stop. I don't change prices. I'm not, oh, this one candle did this, maybe I need to change. No, I trade the strategy, and the strategy works as long as I maintain those rules and stay within those guidelines.
I had the privilege of sitting with you for the past couple of days, and I'm seeing you trade on your phone.
Yeah.
Like, you literally are just trading on two phones.
Yep.
You have one, I'm assuming it's your charts, and the other one is your executions.
Yeah.
First off, most people are trying to build a
Right.
whole station.
Yeah.
They're trying to and you're over here on two phones doing very well. What's your thought on the whole process of you need all of this equipment?
Yeah, so I want to back up a little bit. Because of the data collection, I do use a laptop for that. So
Yes.
I'll take pictures of charts because obviously that's a lot more screen real estate. But in the very beginning, up until I basically hit 6 figures in my account, everything I used was free. Somebody gifted me a desk. Somebody gifted me an old chair. Somebody upgraded their laptop. They didn't need the old one. They gifted me their laptop. Same thing with the mouse. Literally everything that I used to get myself from my starting account value of $3,000 to my 6-figure account was completely free, with the exception of my phone. And yeah, I do 99.9% of my trading on my phone. I think maybe 2 years ago I closed a position on my computer because my phone died and I needed to get out of the position or something like that. But yeah, 100% basically of my trading now is done completely on my phone. And to your point, I only got the second phone a couple months ago because I just wanted to upgrade to the new device. And for most of my time, it's one phone that I'm using to place all of my trades, open and close, pull up my scanner, figure out, what stocks I'm going to trade, look at the charts, locate shares, literally everything. I do it on my phone. So I really bring all that up to say that you don't need to spend money on 6 screens. You don't need to buy software. You don't need to pay for a special journal software. You don't need to join a chat room. You don't need to take a course. I literally did none of those things, and I was able to find a profitable strategy and then get myself to profit.
So I have a lot of questions, okay? Because it's interesting that, the journey you took, most people do not take this journey of, okay, I'm going to get into trading, let me track data, and they go, let me get into trading, I see all the flashy stuff, let me just start trading right away and just trying to catch stuff and just buy stuff. But you quickly start to make the moves of let me just track data, let me find something that works. And you say you're data driven. And when I hear that, and I'm sure people hear that and they're like, this guy must be a tech genius.
Not at all.
So what do you mean by data driven? Because I assumed you were a tech genius.
Yeah.
And then I saw you with tech and I was like, so can you explain that? Yeah,
I'm not a tech genius. In fact, one of the things I like to say about myself is that I don't even know how to use computers. And that's actually a large reason why I use my phone is because...
I can attest, because we had some struggles.
we had some technical difficulties. Yeah, definitely. And I'm also not a coder or anything that. I showed you my spreadsheet. I literally use Google Sheets to track all of my data. And I do track a lot of various data points, about entries, about exits, about theoretical changes to my strategy. But the biggest changes over time have not been in my actual trading strategy. It's been, maybe I need to collect that piece of data. Hey, that worked for me. Maybe I need to collect this piece of data. That worked for me. Maybe I need to take a picture of the chart this way. Okay, maybe I need to take a picture of the chart a different way so that when I go and back test my strategy, all the data is kind of the same and consistent, right?
Yep.
And I also don't know anything about Excel or spreadsheets. I'm self-taught in that regard as well. So I didn't take any courses. I've never really taken any college classes or anything like that.
Would you say for the most part your Google Sheets, not in terms of a bad word, but basic in terms of not crazy formulas, because the people are gonna be like, man, this guy must have equal all these weird formulas, parentheses, this goes to here, this goes to there. What do you mean by when I say basic, could you explain a little bit?
Yeah, definitely none of that. Same thing, I got I made it all for free. So like I definitely built my spreadsheet. I didn't really get the spreadsheet from somebody else.
Yep.
But every equation that I have on my spreadsheet, I learned from just Googling that. You know, how do I XYZ figure that out? And I just look it up and I figure it out.
Yep.
I do use a lot of like color coding and a lot of that kind of stuff, but same thing, that's already built into the sheet. Like, you know, it is very basic functionally, but when you look at the spreadsheet, it looks complex. And that's just because it's suited for me. Like it's built so that when I look at it, I know what the data says. And that makes it easy for when I am analyzing, you know, how did I do this last week, this last month, the last year, so that I can easily figure that out and so that I'm not crunching numbers, fishing through the data to kind of find that stuff.
Now I'm going to ask this again, and only because I feel like I did a poor job of asking this question.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to figure out, when you say 2 months of data, I'm going back again.
Sure.
Are you saying I tracked for 2 months? I get that part. I tracked for 2 months. All I did was track. But did you go, when you were tracking, are you tracking all of the trades that happened way past those 2 months, way in the past, or are you just tracking all that happened during those 2 months?
Yeah, no, I'm literally only tracking the trades that I would have taken based on the criteria that I established. So like those...
So you're not going years back. You're going within that time frame that you're looking at.
And now I am able to go years back with like the data that I've recorded, but I'm not going back further than that. Like all of the data that I have is only the trades that I have actually taken. And I used to incorporate paper trades into those, but that was when I was struggling with the PDT thing. Now, if I see a trade and it sets up great, but I don't get in it, so I don't actually trade it, I don't include it in the spreadsheet. I literally am only tracking the data of the trades that I am taking. Does that answer the question?
It does, and it really, really stumps, or I don't even know if that's a word, but kind of you are unique. It really blows the idea, or blows up the idea of there's a handful of traders who must track for 3, 4, 6 years of data before they even execute on a trade. And we're talking 2 months of information. And you found something that works, and then you started executing it, and here you are 3 years later still executing that same system. That's amazing, man.
Thank you.
That's cool.
Yeah, there definitely have been tweaks to the system.
Okay.
But generally, overall, it's relatively been the same thing. Really, like I said, I've only just added more data that I need to track. I haven't generally fundamentally changed the strategy in about 2 years. I just kind of keep tracking the data, keep making sure that the system still works. And I have about a 60 to 70% success rate. And as long as my spreadsheet says that I'm still within that threshold, all is good,
So going back a little bit more where you mentioned Zach.
Yes.
And you mentioned that we kind of did this together when it's forward.
We still do this together.
Okay, good. So my question is, and I know you help others too, what separates that leap? Because I know Zach's he's consistent. At least I'm somewhat familiar with that. But I know he still struggles with getting to the level that you're at right now. And I'm curious on what is that separation, so that way others who maybe they're making money every day, but they're not making the money they want. What helped you with that?
Definitely. This isn't to say that somebody else isn't as successful necessarily for any given reason, but I think the reason that I am successful is that I spend more time out of the trade than I do in the trade. So I will wake up at 7 o'clock. I'll trade from 7:30 to 9:30. I'm in all of my positions before the market even opens. And then I set my stops at 9:30, and I kind of watch things from like 9:30 to 11. Because sometimes I will get stopped out, and the trade sets up better than it was previously, so I want to take a re-entry. But in the beginning, I wasn't taking re-entries, so that's kind of like one of the new things that I added after about a year. But basically, I'm done at 11. I will go, eat lunch or something just to kind of give me a break in the day. And then I'm literally spending, noon to 8 p.m. tracking and recording the data that I was talking about. And I genuinely, honestly believe that the reason I've been able to be so successful and profitable so quickly is because of the time that I put into the market. I put so much time into collecting, analyzing, and going over the data that the work is putting work into me now. I don't really have to put the work into collecting the data so much. I still do it, obviously, because I want to have that data set to continue and improve on. God forbid my strategy ever stop working, I want to be able to know why.
Yep.
And if I have the data, I can figure that out. But if I don't have the data, I can't figure that out. So I basically will do 80-hour weeks of data collection and data recording, and that data base essentially is what helps me to execute on my trades without having to worry about emotions, without having to worry about, oh no, should I stop out of this or not? Should I take profit?
Yep.
The data tells me what to trade, and as long as I stay within that, I'm able to continue to be profitable. And that's why getting past PDT was so difficult, because I could see a profitable strategy, but I couldn't adequately execute on it because I was restricted to 3 trades over a 5-day period.
Yep. And what I'm very curious about too, though, is you mentioned you spend like 8, you be back, you go to lunch, and then you spend the rest of the time reviewing the data, entering the data. But the question that I have is like, does it take that long to enter that many that data, or are you just entering it and then you're just constantly looking at it and having new ideas? Like, what if I do this? What do you mean by analyzing or entering?
Yeah.
Is it taking you that long to enter? Is it taking that long to do this? Like, what is it?
Yeah, to be honest, it does take me that long to enter. Like,
Okay.
I am really I've got the chart on one screen on my laptop. Like I said, I only use the laptop for the data collection. I genuinely do not use it for the trading. So I've got at home one screen over here and another screen over here, and sometimes I'll use the third screen, but really it's mostly just the two. And I've got the spreadsheet on one and the chart on the other, and I'm just pulling numbers right off the spreadsheet or right off the chart, and I'm putting that into the spreadsheet. I probably could work with a coder to kind of code something to take the data right from the chart and put it on the spreadsheet, but like I said, I'm not very technically knowledgeable, basically.
Yeah.
And so really I've just kind of been chugging along all these years collecting the data by myself. And yeah, it genuinely does just take that long for me to collect the data. But because I do such a meticulous job of collecting the data, the analysis part doesn't take that long. So usually I'll do like data collection Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday is when I'm analyzing the data.
Okay, so you separate that so your brain's not like...
Right, exactly.
Okay.
But also so that I'm not spending too much time collecting the data, and I can actually analyze the data to figure out, am I still kind of within my rails, still within my boundaries for my strategy, or has maybe the market shifted, that kind of stuff.
How many data points do you collect? And if you're willing to share some of those data points.
Gosh, I don't even know. I would say 30, maybe 40 data points. Like, I stopped really keeping track. And
We're talking like float, market cap, like all that kind of
Nope,
stuff?
no, I don't pay attention to float. I don't pay attention to market cap. I don't pay attention to, kind of volume. Even when I look at like the volume for a trade, I really just want to make sure that it's enough such that it makes sense for me to enter the trade, right? And it's really like, did it hit, 250,000 in volume or not?
Yeah.
Really what I'm collecting the data for is obviously like my entries and my exits, the number of shares that I took. I'm paying attention to I'm always running an analysis to see is my current exit strategy a good strategy, or should I change it a little bit? Another thing I want to point out is when I was trying to get past the PDT, I would hold overnight. And so I would short something the first day, hold it overnight, assuming I didn't take a loss, and then the next morning I would close, and that would not trigger one of my day trades, right? And so for the past 3 years, I've effectively been doing that, but now the data is suggesting that that might not be a profitable strategy. And if I didn't have the data over the past 3 years, I wouldn't really be able to know that immediately.
Yep.
I might not know that at all because I don't have the data clearly saying, hey, this was working and now there's a better option. And then another thing that I use the spreadsheet for is for my entry prices. So I mentioned that I'm very data-driven and very meticulous. I let the data tell me what price to enter at. I'm not choosing a price or using support and resistance to find a price. I don't use indicators. I don't use, my chart is very clean. So it's really just the data tells me what to trade, and I put those entries in. If I don't get filled, maybe I'll take a slightly different entry, also still based off of the data, not my discretion. And sometimes I miss trades because the entries just don't trigger, and that's fine. I would rather not force a trade and not lose on that trade than force a trade, lose on that trade, and I didn't follow my data, and now I'm just not sure what I'm doing.
What has been the biggest challenge for you?
Yeah, really the biggest challenge for me was getting past the PDT restriction.
Yep.
And also acknowledging too late when the market has shifted on me. So like I've definitely had red months, but I've had a majority of green months, and I have red weeks all the time. I have red days all the time. But generally, as long as I stay within my 60 to 70% success rate, then I'm able to continually have profitable months and profitable years. And it's very easy and clear based on the data if I'm maintaining that 60% to 70% success rate. And if I'm not, it's also clear sort of why. Sometimes it's I broke a rule and I traded something that I shouldn't have, or something didn't have enough volume, or I didn't wait. I got in too early when I probably should have waited for 7:30 to roll around to enter that trade. And effectively, the only other thing that's been like a big roadblock for me is being too hasty and not making sure I'm obeying all of my rules.
It's really hard for me to think of some questions for you right now because I'm like, you have such a unique story where you're kind of remind me of Chris Shunk, who I've interviewed, who kind of just took data and just believed in it blindly and just dove in, became profitable like that.
Yeah.
And so it amazes me when I run into these type of people because the majority of the people I know, the successful ones, even the ones who are still working on it, they don't have this type of story. It's usually like, the common, like, I just went big, I lost a lot, and so forth. So what advice would you give to someone who is starting out today?
Yeah, the big advice that I would give is find something that works and execute on that. I did try to trade discretionarily before 2021. I did try to, I think the price looks good, or I think the VWAP crossed whatever and the volume and blah, blah, blah. Like I tried all of that and it really didn't work for me. What really worked for me was being patient, collecting data on something. I had a hunch. I saw through scalping that wasn't working for me. I saw,
every time you buy that.
Right. Every time I bought, it went down. And I also saw too, like, these trades would open at, $1 or something, and they would fall below $1. And that was sort of like that would happen consistently, like it would happen all the time. And so I was like, okay, let's sort of like track the data and watch that. And it really helped me because not being discretionary takes out a lot of the emotion. Blindly obeying the data, sort of like you said Chris did, really is what helped me because the data will tell you what works and what doesn't, but if you don't trade the data, then it doesn't really matter if you have the data at all. So be patient, take time, collect the data, and I would also say in the very beginning, don't worry about making money. I didn't worry about making money. All I wanted to do was to be consistent and be profitable. And obviously I do want to grow my account, and that is important, but I would also just say to find something that works for you. Don't try to find something that works for somebody else and make that work for you. Find something that works for you and capitalize on that.
Is there something that you're dealing with right now that you wish you could improve on that is holding you back from your next level that, maybe you have some other goal that we don't know about? Regarding trading, of course.
Sure. I would say that it is kind of to move in the direction of, since I'm trading the data, and because I feel like I'm very robotic with my trading and systematized with my trading, I do maybe want to find ways where I can algorithmatize my strategy. So I do want to work with a coder and see if I can code parts and pieces of what I do and eventually work that into sort of like a trading bot that is me, but more so a trading bot that trades the data, right? So maybe I'll move into something like that so I don't have to be glued to my phone all the time. But it is also kind of analyzing the data in a way where I can find kind of to break some of the ruts that I've been in. So I still will kind of hold some of my trades overnight. And I very recently almost had a situation where I held a trade overnight. I was up 1R, or technically 1.5R. The trade was doing really well. I thought I could get a little bit more by holding until next morning, which is something that has really been working for me for the past 2 or 3 years. And I woke up and I was down 4 or 5R.
Yep.
And if I looked back, I could have been down 10, 11, 12, 15R because because of how high the stock did spike. Obviously, if you are shorting, you're never going to make 100% profit, but you could very easily lose 100% on that position size. And so I really think I want to try and algorithmatize what I'm doing so that I can take a little bit of the risk out of the discretion that I still do use, and to help me trade the data instead of trying to trade the habits that I've been trading over the past few years.
Since you're so data driven, I see you on your phone these past couple of days trading. And you mentioned earlier that your kind of routine is I'm in all my positions before the open, and then at 11:30 I go have a lunch.
Right.
Can you just enjoy your day and just let your stops do the work for you and your profits, not even look at it? Like, I'm just curious, like, do you find yourself, because you mentioned earlier too, like, I would love to do some type of trading bot, so that
Right.
way I wouldn't have to be glued to my phone. Like, do you necessarily have to be glued to your phone?
Yeah, I don't have to. I think at this point it's really a superstition thing. Like, I've just been doing it so long for the past few years, and I'm worried that if I stop looking at the chart, it's going to go against me, or if I stop looking at my trades, that maybe they won't get respected, maybe something will gap up or something like that, and kind of miss my stop. And so I do really want to move in the direction of kind of setting stops and just walking away. And that's something that I would really say to new traders. Like, try to find a strategy where you can set it and forget it and kind of walk away. That's really what I tell new traders. Like, I definitely want them to understand the importance of collecting data, analyzing that data, taking those trades. But I also really stress in the very beginning that this is a strategy where, as long as you are setting your stops and the stops are respected, you can walk away. So try not to get too ingrained in watching the chart all the
Every tick.
time.
Yeah.
Every tick, exactly. It is definitely really important to put the time in, because like I said, I really think that the time I put in outside of trading is really what helped me to get to profitability faster.
Yep.
But I also think that you can't let it consume you. It's got to be, you've got to be able to walk away at some point and kind of close your trades and be done with things.
Look, I already know, like, so many people are going to be like, yo, I'm ready to start collecting data, and they're probably going to want to ask you questions. They're probably going to want you back on the show. So look, if people want to learn more about you, could you let them know how they can learn more about you?
Yeah, definitely. So I don't have a YouTube channel. I'm not on social media. I really like to be, ironically, I like to be unplugged.
I got lucky finding you, by the way.
Yeah, but you found me on your Discord, and that's where I do like to spend a decent amount of time when I'm not collecting data or I'm not, physically trading. So yeah, on your Discord server, my name is Sheffy3 on there, and you're welcome to come and ask me questions, and I'll answer whatever I can.
Well, look, Sheffy, it was great learning about your story, man, and I know a lot of people are going to be very inspired by this. So thanks, man, for being here and
Thanks for
sharing
having me.
it. Absolutely.
Have a good one.
Thanks.